Desire Outwits Mother Nature. Mr. Napoleon Hills book, Think and Grow Rich, is easily the best seller of a book of all time. It has impacted thousands and thousands of men and women who have read and adopted the principles discussed in the book. In this episode 4, we look at Desire Outwits Mother Nature. Desire is the starting point for all achievement. Every person who wins in any undertaking must be willing to burn his ships and cut all sources of retreat. Only by doing so can one be sure of maintaining that state of mind known as a burning desire to win, essential to success. This is especially true for entrepreneurs, digipreneurs, wanapreneurs, solopreneurs, mompreneurs, dadpreneurs, affiliate marketers, digital marketers, online marketers, and businessmen or businesswomen. Check out the earlier episodes of this series here below. Desire is the starting point of all achievement. Mr. Hill talks about his son, Blair, who was born without any physical ears and did not have any hearing. When the child was born, the doctor informed Hill and his wife that the child would be deaf and mute for life. Mr. Hill challenged the doctor's opinion, and internally he decided that his son would hear and speak somehow. Hill says that nature could send him a child without ears, but nature could not induce him to accept the reality of the condition. Hill was sure that there must be a way and he would find it somehow. He thought of the words of the great Emerson: "The whole course of things goes to teach us faith. We need only obey. There is guidance for each of us, and by lowly listening, we shall hear the right word." I invite you to a free masterclass with my friend and mentor, Vick Strizheus, on how to build a dream business online in 30 days and earn $100,000 per month. Sounds interesting? Click the button to watch this life-changing masterclass now. Click on the link below to know more. For Hill, the right word was desire, and he desired that his son should not be deaf and mute, and from that desire he did not even recede even for a second. Such was his intense and burning desire for his son's speech and hearing. Hill remembers writing previously, "Our only limitations are those we set up in our own minds." He was wondering if this is true because lying in front of him was his newly born child, Blair, who was born without the natural equipment of hearing. Even though the child might hear and speak, he was disfigured for life. Hill felt that this was not a limitation that the child has set up in his own mind. This may have been a fleeting moment of doubt in Hill's mind, but he would find a way to transplant into that child's mind his own burning desire for ways and means of conveying sound to his brain without the aid of ears. Hill resolved that as soon as the child was old enough to cooperate, he would fill the child's mind so completely with a burning desire to hear that nature would, by methods of her own, translate it into physical reality. All this thinking took place in Hill's mind, but he spoke of it to no one else. Every day he renewed a pledge that he made to himself, not to accept a deaf and mute child for a son. As the child grew older, Hill noticed that the child had a slight degree of hearing. Hill was convinced that if he could hear even slightly, he might develop still greater hearing capacity. When Mr. Hill bought a Victrola at home, his son appropriated it and used it to hear through bone conduction. It was a far from encouraging situation, but Hill says that desire backed by faith knows no such thing as impossible. Hill started to tell his child bedtime stories, which fired the child's self reliance, imagination, and keen desire to hear and be normal. Hill told the child how his affliction was not a liability but an asset of great value. Hill says every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. While Hill's reasoning told him that there was no adequate compensation for the lack of ears and natural hearing, but desire, backed by faith, pushed reason aside and inspired him to carry on. Hill says that in retrospect, that his son's faith in Hill had much to do with the astounding results. The son did not question him anything that his father told him. Hill told his son that he had a distinct advantage over his elder brother. His teachers would observe that he had no ears and would show him special attention and treat him with extraordinary kindness. Hill also told his son that he would have an advantage over his elder brother, who was into the newspaper business, that people would pay him extra money for his wares, as they could see that he was a bright, industrious boy, despite the fact that he had no ears. Do you want a dream business online, which means that you earn a lot of money? Do you want a lifestyle of freedom, which means that you do not worry about money or working in a job? Do you want massive, passive, recurring income, which means that you work smart instead of working hard? Do you want to run a business without an office, employees, products, and services, which means your expenses will be very low and you can work from anywhere? And do you want to earn more while you are asleep than you can spend when you are awake, which means that you are financially free? If you answered yes to any of the above, I have a special gift for you. If you have read this far, if you have listened this far, I know that you are committed to changing your life and I want to help you. I am offering you a free course only for a limited time. Click on https://shashidarcn.com/freedom-challenge. https://shashidarcn.com/freedom-challenge. And I'll see you on the other side. Continuing with our podcast, Mr. Hill noticed that the child's hearing was improving. He was not self-conscious because of his affliction. He wanted to go out and sell newspapers, but his mother did not agree, as she was scared that his deafness would be unsafe for him to go on the street alone. One afternoon, the son quietly climbed out of the window, borrowed 6 cents from the neighborhood shoemaker, invested in papers, sold out, reinvested, and kept repeating till late in the evening. He paid back the 6 cents that he had borrowed and had a net profit of 42 cents. When Mr. and Mrs. Hill got back home that night, they found him in bed, asleep, with the money tightly clenched in his hand. Mrs. Hill opened his hand, removed the coins, and cried. Mr. Hill, on the other hand, laughed cheerfully, knowing that his efforts to plant in his child's mind an attitude of faith in himself had been successful. Mr. Hill realized that his son had confidence in his abilities and had gone into business on his own initiative and won. Hill realized that the child had shown resourcefulness that would go throughout his life. Hill states that whenever his elder son wanted something, he would throw tantrums until he got it. But the younger child would plan a way to earn the money and buy it for himself. Hill's son went to a regular school, high school, and college without being able to hear his teachers except when they shouted loudly at close range. The Hills were determined that their child should live a normal life and associate with normal children, and they were firm on that decision, even though it cost them many heated debates with school officials. When the child was in high school, he tried an electrical hearing aid, but it was of no use to him. During his last week in college, something happened which marked the most important turning point in Blair's life. By chance, he came across another electrical hearing device which was sent to him for trial. His earlier disappointments with the electrical device notwithstanding, he carelessly placed the device on his head, hooked up the battery, and almost as if by a stroke of magic, his lifelong desire for normal hearing became a reality. For the first time in his life, he heard practically as well as any person with normal hearing. Overjoyed with his changed world, he called his mother over telephone and heard her voice perfectly. The next day, he heard his professors plainly in class. He heard the radio, and for the first time in his life, he could converse freely with other people without the necessity of their having to speak loudly. He had come into possession of a changed world. The Hills had refused to accept nature's error, and by persistent desire, they had induced nature to correct that error through the only practical means possible. Desire had commenced to pay dividends, but the victory was not yet complete. Intoxicated with the joy of his newly discovered world of sound, the boy wrote an enthusiastic letter to the manufacturer of the hearing aid and enthusiastically described his experience. The company then invited him to New York to visit their factory. There he was escorted by the chief engineer, and to whom Blair, the boy, told him about his changed world, a hunch, an idea, or an inspiration which flashed into his mind. This impulse of thought converted his affliction into an asset, destined to pay dividends in both money and happiness to thousands for all time to come. The sum and substance of that impulse of thought was this. It occurred to him that he could help millions of deaf people who go throughout life without the benefit of hearing devices. If he could find a way to tell them the story of his changed world. Then and there, he made a decision to devote the remainder of his life to rendering useful service to the hard of hearing. After researching for an entire month and after analyzing the entire marketing system of the manufacturer of the hearing device, he created a 2-year plan and presented it to the company. He was instantly given a position for the purpose of carrying out his ambition. Little did he know that when he went to work, that he was destined to bring hope and practical relief to thousands of deaf people who without his help would have been doomed forever to a life of deafness. Hill states that he and his son have been destined to aid in correcting deafness for those as yet unborn, because they are the only living beings at that point of time who can succeed in correcting deafness and restoring a normal life to those who suffered from it. It had been done for one, it would be done for others. Hill states that but for his and his wife's desire and faith for their son to hear, he would not have done so normally. Even the doctor who examined his son Blair was astonished that Blair could hear, because even X-ray pictures showed that there was no opening in the skull where his ears should be to the brain. Hill says that nothing is impossible to the person who backs desire with enduring faith. There is nothing right or wrong which belief plus burning desire cannot make real. These qualities are free for everyone. If Mother Nature bends to the will of desire, is it logical that mere men can defeat a burning desire? Strange and imponderable is the power of the human mind. We do not understand the method by which it uses every circumstance, every individual, every physical thing within its reach as a means of transmuting desire into its physical counterpart. Perhaps science will uncover this secret. Hill says that he planted in his son's mind the desire to hear and speak as any normal being would do. That desire had become a reality. He had planted in his mind the desire to convert his greatest handicap into his greatest asset. That desire was realized. The modus operandi by which this astounding result was achieved was not hard to describe for Hill. It consists of 3 definite facts. Hill mixed faith with desire for normal hearing, which he passed to his son. Second, Hill communicated his desire to his son in every conceivable way possible through persistent and consistent effort over many years. Third, Hill's son believed his father. Hill describes instance after instance of how desire triumphed over other people's opinion of a person's ability. He shares the example of Madame Schumann Hink, who was rejected and humiliated by the director of the Vienna Court Opera when she went to him as a child to get her voice tested. The director of the opera knew about the technique of singing, but he did not know about the power of desire when it assumes the power of an obsession. If he did, he would not make the mistake of condemning genius without giving it an opportunity. Hill also shares the instance of a colleague who was seriously ill and was to be operated upon. The doctor warned that he had little chance of survival after the operation. That was the doctor's opinion and not that of the patient. The patient was determined to live, and he did. Hill states that he believes in the power of desire backed by faith because he has seen this power lift men and women from lowly beginnings to places of power and wealth, seen it rob the grave of its victims, seen it serve as the medium by which people staged a comeback after having been defeated in 100 different ways, seen it provide a son with a normal, happy, successful life in spite of nature having sent him into the world without ears. Through some strange and powerful principle of mental chemistry, which she has never divulged, nature wraps up in the impulse of strong desire that something which recognizes no such word as impossible and accepts no such reality as failure. So, how can we harness the power of desire? Stay tuned to further episodes as we reveal more about the power of desire coupled with other principles mentioned in the book Think and Grow Rich. Do you agree with this? Share, like, and comment, and let us have an enriching conversation on this topic which troubles all entrepreneurs. I invite you to a free masterclass with my friend and mentor, Vick Strizheus, on how to build a dream business online in 30 days and earn $1,000 per month. Sounds interesting? Check out my website shashidarcn.com/AMA to know more. If you want to listen to this on a podcast, click below and watch other episodes. If you want to read this on my blog, check out shashidarcn.com/blog. If you prefer a shortened version on video, then go to my webpage and check the video links. If you want to buy this book and experience its magical powers, go to shashidarcn.com/books. This blog contains excerpts and is adapted from the book Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, LBA, the Kindle edition. Thank you and stay tuned for more episodes on this incredible and life-changing bestseller of a book. Thank you again. See you on the other side. Bye-bye.